Hello everybody and welcome back to Animal Life Forest Roleplay. Now today I'm going to show you how to make an experienced roleplay. First of all, obviously you need to host a lobby. So I have hosted this one. I've named it nothing, but you can name it anything you want as long as it has pack in it. So let's say crescent moon pack. There we go. Now your description can be anything from a little story or the rules. So for me, I make experience only role plays. So I want everybody to know that when they join my game, XP checks will happen and auditions will be held for those higher roles. Now, with experienced role plays, those higher roles will entail alpha, lunar, beta, gamma, zeta, and delta. You can also have a kappa, but they're pretty much useless. So with this, I will explain what they are. So when you go into these roles, you obviously add role when you want to make your roles. So alpha and lunar is self-explanatory. Alpha is the male leader of a pack. Lunar is the female leader of a pack. Beta is in the second command. Gamma could be the elder. So gammas can be the old alpha that is no longer fit for the role. Or could generally just be third in command, but they are also higher. If you are playing on a map like this, which most of the role plays, experienced role plays, are on these maps, there will be a rock. If I just show you, don't mind these eggs. It is currently Easter, as you can tell from the bottom left corner of my screen. So this is the rock that the alpha and the higher ranks will stand on. So not just this rock, it is this whole ledge here. These is the threshold of higher ranks. The lower ranks sit down here, higher ranks up here. So the alpha, lunar, beta and gamma can sit up here. The delta, kappa, theta, anything else has to stay down here. Because although the other ones that I mentioned are, hold on. Although the other roles I have mentioned are higher ranks, they're not high enough to be on the rock. This is just so you're not having 7 odd wolves. If you have both the alpha and the lunar, you'd have an alpha, lunar, beta, gamma, delta, zeta, kappa. That's 7 wolves, and then a theta, so that's actually 8 wolves that would be sat on this rock. And most of the time, that many roles is not needed. So only the alpha, lunar, beta, and gamma can and gamma can be up here. Delta and zeta can be up here if you wish, but most of the time delta doesn't exist, and zeta is the war general, so they don't really need to be on the rock. But yeah, so that's kind of how the rock situation will go. Obviously, it does differentiate from roleplay to roleplay. This is how I would do it, and this is kind of the rules that I'm setting down for my roleplays. So obviously, these are the roles: alpha, beta, gamma, theta, subordinate, omega, exiled rogues, lead rogues, other or specs. So with this, obviously the alpha and lunar head of the pack, as I said earlier, they will be the ones deciding who is going to be their beta or gamma, or it could be the roleplay creator. Most of the time you will have to audition for these. That entails you either being asked to have, do you want a prompt or do you want to freestyle? So a lot of those things would be something like, so they would probably ask you something like, I'll go prompt, if I can spell, or freestyle is probably what they're going to ask you. And prompt means they're going to give you a description of a scenario that you have to answer correctly to. So it would be some, if you were auditioning for beta, let's say, they would say something, this is just off the top of my head, they'll say something like, the Alpha or Luna is off discussing with the rogues about territory, the pack are growing hungry, and you're in the middle of a drought. So your pack are hungry, there's no water, they're hot, and your Alpha and Luna have gone, which means that your wolf, being the beta, needs to take charge, needs to put in certain rules going, this needs to happen and that needs to happen. So in that scenario, what I would write is, I normally get notepad from down at the bottom and just start writing my big long paragraph. And yes, most of the time it will have to be a paragraph in your roleplay style. So for me, it would be like, obviously I'm a pup, but if I was an adult, it would be, let's say my name was Cyanide. So Cyanide would. So with this, Cyanide would stand on the rock. That is fine, although that's not very experienced. That is also fine, as long as you add more descriptive things to it. So rather than just saying Cyanide would stand on the rock, you could go Cyanide would heave himself up, posturing his frame tall, and stuff like that. So rather than going Cyanide would stand on the rock, it would be Cyanide would heave himself up, posturing his frame tall. And then it could be that, let's say I'm going to howl for a pack meeting to sort this drought issue out whilst Alpha and Luna have gone. So it would be something like Cyanide would heave himself up, posturing his frame tall. He threw back his cranium. Cranium is short for, well, it's not short, sorry, cranium just means head. So threw back his cranium, and a bellowing howl emit from his maw. So that's what I would have put. Sorry, I need to add to that. It would be that, and then also I spelled form and not from, but from his maw, calling a pack meeting. You can also write it up here. Obviously, announcements, Cyanide howled for the pack for a pack meeting. Let's say 1 minute, announce, and then at the top of the screen, that's what would have happened. That is if you're co-host, but obviously this is just the prompt or freestyle, so you could say that, and then what you can do is explain the rest of it. So for me, he would heave himself up, he'd howl for a pack meeting, he'd get the wolf pack into 2 groups, one for food, one to scout the territory for any source of water, whilst the Alpha and Luna have gone. And that would be it. Then the pups would have to stay here, and the Omega would stay with the pups, as the Omegas often are pup sitters. So that's kind of what I would do in that prompt. Or freestyle would be so hold on, I'll write prompt in chat so you can always see it. Prompt is a scenario of which you have to reply correctly in your own form of roleplay style. And then freestyle is whatever you want to write in your own style of roleplay. So a lot of prompts for higher roles are also XP checks. So I need the space, but so a lot of the prompts or the freestyle you'll be asked to do is based on whether or not they think that you are good enough to be in those high roles and experienced enough to be in the role play in the server. So obviously me just writing Cyanide got up and howled for a pack meeting, just saying that won't cut it. Howled for going back to the prompt, but like that won't cut it. Or, you know, Cyanide went over to the lake and had a drink. This sort of thing is very bland. So if you were to read a story and it just went Cyanide went over to the lake and had a drink, that's not really going to capture you. But if it had more descriptive words, like Cyanide heaved their muscular frame from the whatever grass, from the soft fluffy grass, whatever you want to call it, it'd capture you more because you're like, oh, okay, describing the body and stuff like that. So that's kind of what you have to do for prompts or free. That's kind of the difference between prompts and freestyles, and a little bit into like how you would respond to a prompt or freestyle. Now, if you do role play a bit like Cyanide got up and howled for the pack meeting, rather than, you know, or Cyanide went over to the lake and had a drink, it is completely fine, but experienced role plays, unfortunately, are not for you. A lot of people don't like the fact that I'm going to say that, but experienced role plays often mean that you have to have descriptive text. Descriptive text, and it doesn't have to be like super special words. Why is fancy on? It doesn't have to be, you know, special words like cranium, extremities, anything like that. It doesn't have to be that. You can role play still, like rather than saying cranium, he could throw his head back. That is perfectly fine. You do not have to use extremely descriptive words, but you do need to be descriptive in your role play. So if I was to do it without cranium, pelage, stuff like that, I would put something like Cyanide would raise himself up So this is what I would put. Cyanide would raise himself up from the marshy land. His ears flicked forward as his eyes scanned the horizon. That is a long way of just saying he got up and looked around. But that's just, I described that he rose himself up rather than like he got up. It just adds a little bit more of that. I described the landscape, so the marshy land, and his ears flicked rather than, you know, he just got up and looked around. I described another body part, so his ears flicked forwards as his eyes scanned the horizon. So that is kind of like what you'd have to do for an experienced role play. If you don't understand a lot of those words that are like cranium, extremities, tassel, audits or auditories, you know, visionaries, stuff like that. If you don't understand that, that is perfectly fine. You can still be in a experienced role play as long as you role play like this, rather than like Cyanide went over to the lake and had a drink. On the other hand, you can also role play like I do, and I use scientific words for my body parts of my wolf. So it would, if I was to do Cyanide would raise himself up from the marshy land, his ears flick forward, I can do this roleplay line, but in my style. So my style would be this. Let me just type it. Okay, so Cyanide would raise himself upon his extremities. His audits flickered dorsally as his visionary scanned the marshy terrain for movement within the flora. So I'm very descriptive in the way that that I roleplay. But Cyanide would raise himself up from the marshy land, his ears flick forward as his eyes scan the horizon, is also fine for experienced roleplays. Obviously, this one with the extremities, audits, visionaries, terrain, flora, that is perfect for a experienced roleplay. So yeah, with that, I've just taught you how to roleplay within a experienced roleplay game. Now we'll get to the board. So this board is things that will be everything that describes your game. So for instance, I always put the rules here. So I put welcome to the server. This roleplay is strictly for experienced players only. Realistic coat colours. You cannot have magic. You can't attack without perms, and you have to ask perms from the alpha to start drama. So that's because a lot of people like drama, and alphas often get forgotten. So if I was a pup on the rogue side and I had a parent, let's say, or a guardian on the other side, on the rogue side, so I was a rogue pup, I am the roleplay creator. I don't know what's going on within the pack because I am a rogue rather than a pack member. So there is going to be another alpha, which is going to be also a leader of the server. They are mostly going to be a co-host, so they can make announcements up here. It is smarter to do that way, so they have more authority and easier to get people to listen to them. So yeah, that's what you need to know about that for like to help your alphas out. You can also have, like in mine, I put inexperienced will get kicked. I will ask you, obviously, what I've put here. This is strictly experience only. XP checks will happen and auditions will be held. I will ask you to do an experience check, and that would mean you do a prompt or you do freestyle, and it will be something like what I've wrote in here. If you're experienced enough, you get to stay. If you're not, I will kindly ask you to leave. If you don't, you will get kicked. If you come back, you will get banned from the server. That's kind of how I go. If you don't listen and argue, you will also be kicked, because a lot of people argue with hosts. And my number one thing for unexperienced people is running. Most unexperienced players will join you. They won't talk to you. They won't do anything. All they will do is run around the map. They won't have a roleplay name. They will just have their normal name. And they will run around the map like a headless chicken. Most of the time they are either a horse or they are giant bears. They're just something big and massive running around like a headless chicken around your server. Then just means of kicking. I have asked a load of people before, like, can you please give me an XP check? Could you please be a wolf? They look at me and just run away. So that's one of my pet peeves. That's one of my most hated peeves of this game, when people just join and run away. But yeah, those means are just for kicking. If that happens, they just kick. Now, your story is what's going to hook the player into your roleplay as well. So what I've got is you are growing weaker. Your pelage has lost its luminescence and appears more dishevelled and faded out. You grow weaker with every step. A barbaric harrowing canine approaches you. Do you submit or do you fight? Thank you and enjoy. I can add a lot more to that to make more sense, but that's just kind of what I've thought of. So that is a very experienced storyboard. Obviously, pelage is fur, luminescence is light, so it could just mean the shimmer. So it's lost its shimmer. Nice healthy wolf will have a nice shimmer to its pelt. a little, like, it'll be glossy and stuff like that. However, a hungry, starving wolf would probably have more of a musky coat, very thin, kind of dishevelled, you know, not really much to it. So your board has to be quite experienced with obviously your rules and whatever else you want to put in there. So now that we've gone over that, and I've gone over XP checks and freestyling, making announcements for XP checks if you really wish to. Now it's your bio and name. So with this, I like to put little symbols. You don't have to put symbols, but I prefer to put symbols. And then I would be very descriptive. I've got another I have another video on making a experienced bio. So and I have seen quite a lot of you in these games. You have stolen my bio, which I don't mind as a such, as long as you give me credit for that bio if people ask you, and do not just use it to make yourself look experienced if you are not. It is fine if you are trying to be experienced and you just need to give it a little go, that is perfectly fine. But my bio for Omeros has been stolen quite a lot, and I have got multiple photos of people stealing Omeros from me, which I don't appreciate people stealing. If you wish to use it, you can, just don't steal the name too. I've seen a lot of people, they have stolen a lot of my names, they have stolen my bio that goes along with it. I'd prefer you to make up your own name, or if you want to use Omeros' name, you can make your own bio up for them, as it gets very confusing, especially because people are now starting to think that I am people who I'm not. I am not, but yeah, I just don't want people stealing my whole OC, because I have thought of that. But anyway, this is quite a long video, so without that tangent, I am just going to say thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. Goodbye.